King Cyrus, the king of Persia, occupies a unique place in the Bible. He's a Gentile king, not Jewish, yet God chose him for a special purpose. The Bible calls Cyrus the Lord's anointed, Isaiah 45:1. This title, anointed, usually refers to kings of Israel or ultimately to the Messiah. Yet Cyrus, a pagan king, receives this high honor. God raised up Cyrus to conquer Babylon and allow the Jewish exiles to return home. His actions had a profound impact on the future of the Jewish people and the unfolding of God's plan. The book of Isaiah, written long before Cyrus's birth, contains a remarkable prophecy. The prophet Isaiah speaks of Cyrus by name, predicting his rise to power and his role in freeing the Jewish captives. Cyrus's conquest of Babylon was swift and decisive. He diverted the Euphrates River, allowing his troops to enter the city through the riverbed. The Bible records the fall of Babylon and the subsequent decree from Cyrus allowing the Jewish exiles to return home. This decree marked a turning point in Jewish history. After decades of exile, the Jewish people were free to return to their homeland. Cyrus's actions were extraordinary. He recognized the Jewish God and facilitated their return to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of their temple. This act of remarkable generosity and religious tolerance set Cyrus apart from other ancient rulers. The Bible praises Cyrus for his righteousness and obedience to God's will. His story serves as a powerful reminder that God can work through anyone to accomplish his purposes. Cyrus, the pagan king, became an instrument in God's hands to bring about the restoration of his people. His story is a testament to the faithfulness of God and his enduring love for his people. To understand the impact of Cyrus, we must journey back to ancient Persia. In the mid-6th century BC, Persia was experiencing a surge of power and influence. The Persians were being forged into a formidable force under the leadership of Cyrus's grandfather, Achaemenes. This marked the beginning of the Achaemenid dynasty. The Persians were known for their skill in horsemanship and archery. Unlike many of their contemporaries, the Persians were known for their religious tolerance. Into this power vacuum stepped the ambitious and charismatic Cyrus, poised to shape the destiny of nations. Cyrus's birth and early life are shrouded in legend and historical accounts. Herodotus tells a tale of Cyrus's ancestry involving a prophecy and a kind-hearted shepherd. Cyrus eventually challenged and defeated his grandfather Astyages, uniting the Persians and Medes under his rule. While the historical accuracy of Herodotus's account is debated, it highlights the aura of destiny surrounding Cyrus. Cyrus inherited a powerful kingdom, forged through the military prowess of his forefathers. His early life was likely spent honing his skills in leadership, diplomacy, and warfare. He would have been steeped in the traditions and beliefs of his people. The world into which Cyrus emerged was on the brink of a new era. The old empires were crumbling, their foundations weakened by internal strife and external pressures. The Assyrian Empire was in its death throes, its vast territories up for grabs. The Egyptians struggled to maintain their grip on power. In this tumultuous landscape, a new power was rising in the east. The Persians, under Cyrus' leadership, were poised to fill the void left by the declining empires. Cyrus, with his charisma and military acumen, was the perfect leader to guide them to greatness. While we may not have a detailed account of Cyrus's childhood, we can surmise that he was exposed to the political and military realities of his time. The Persians were a burgeoning power, and Cyrus would have been raised with an understanding of their ambitions and the challenges they faced. His education would have included training in horsemanship, archery, and the art of war. More importantly, he would have received instruction in leadership, diplomacy, and strategy. The Persian kings placed a high value on justice and order. and Cyrus would have been instilled with these principles from a young age. His later actions suggest a deeply ingrained sense of righteousness unusual for a ruler of his time. This atmosphere of tolerance would have profoundly influenced Cyrus's worldview. Cyrus's ascent to power began with a bold move against his own grandfather, Astyages, the king of Media. The Medes had established a powerful empire, controlling much of the Iranian plateau and parts of Anatolia. Astyages had grown wary of Cyrus's ambitions and the growing strength of the Persians. Fearing a challenge to his throne, he reportedly attempted to eliminate the young Cyrus. However, Cyrus survived, and as he matured, so did the power and influence of the Persians. Eventually, the simmering tensions between the two kingdoms erupted into open conflict. The result was a decisive victory for Cyrus, culminating in the capture of Astyages and the fall of the Median capital, Ecbatana. With the Medes subdued, Cyrus set his sights on the wealthy kingdom of Lydia in western Anatolia. Lydia, ruled by King Croesus, was famed for its riches. Croesus had grown complacent, confident in his ability to repel any threat. In 547 BC, Cyrus led his armies westward to confront Croesus. The Lydian king marched out to meet Cyrus in battle, unaware of the Persian king's military genius. What followed was a series of engagements, culminating in the Battle of Pteria. Sardis fell to the Persians and Croesus was captured, marking the end of the Lydian kingdom. Having conquered Media and Lydia, Cyrus turned his attention towards Babylon. Ruled by King Nabonidus, Babylon was at the height of its power and prestige. Yet beneath its grandeur, Babylon was a city-state steeped in its own religious traditions. Nabonidus had alienated the priesthood, creating a climate of unrest. Cyrus, recognizing the strategic opportunity, carefully planned his assault on Babylon. He employed a combination of military strategy, diplomacy, and psychological warfare. He portrayed himself as a liberator rather than a conqueror. In a daring move, Cyrus diverted the Euphrates River, allowing his troops to march through the riverbed and enter Babylon. The Babylonians, caught off guard, put up little resistance. Nabonidus was captured, and Babylon fell to Cyrus without a major battle. The fall of Babylon in 539 BC marked a turning point in ancient history. It signaled the end of the Babylonian Empire and the rise of the Persian Empire. Cyrus adopted a remarkably enlightened approach to governance. He permitted the return of exiled peoples, including the Jews, earning him a reputation for justice and compassion. Cyrus's conquest of Babylon was not just a military triumph, it was a pivotal moment in biblical history. For the Jewish exiles in Babylon, Cyrus's victory was miraculous. They had endured decades of captivity. Yet here was a foreign king who recognized their right to return to Jerusalem. Isaiah prophesied this event. Isaiah 44:28 proclaims, "He is my shepherd. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt." These words were now ringing true. Cyrus was about to shape the destiny of the Jewish people. Cyrus's decree, recorded in the book of Ezra, reverberates through history. Ezra 1:2-4 states, "This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says, The Lord has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. Any of his people among you may go up to Jerusalem in Judah and build the temple of the Lord, the God of Israel, the God who is in Jerusalem, and may their God be with them." With these words, Cyrus not only authorized the return of the Jewish exiles to their homeland, but also sanctioned the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, the center of their faith and their national identity. Cyrus's decree in 538 BC marked a turning point in Jewish history. It was a beacon of hope for a people who had endured decades of exile. The decree encouraged their return and provided support for rebuilding their temple. Cyrus believed he was divinely appointed to build a temple in Jerusalem. This acknowledgement resonated deeply with the Jewish people. Cyrus was seen as an instrument in the hands of their God. The decree granted freedom of movement and support for the rebuilding. Cyrus's generosity was unprecedented in ancient conquest. The response to Cyrus's decree among the Jewish exiles was a mixture of jubilation, disbelief, and trepidation. After decades of captivity, many had resigned themselves to a life in exile, their hopes of returning to their homeland fading with each passing year. Yet here was a tangible sign, a divine intervention, that their prayers had been heard. The very notion of returning to Zion, the city of David, the site of their sacred temple, filled them with a mix of joy and apprehension. The journey back to Jerusalem was arduous and fraught with challenges. It was a journey of hundreds of miles, across desolate landscapes and through territories controlled by potentially hostile tribes. The returning exiles were not a conquering army, but a disparate group of families, many of whom had been born in captivity and had never set foot in the land of their ancestors. They carried with them their meager belongings, their faith, and the hope for a new beginning in the land promised to their forefathers. The first group of returnees, led by Sheshbazzar, a prince of Judah, arrived in Jerusalem sometime around 537 BC. They found a city in ruins, its walls breached, its houses destroyed, its once magnificent temple reduced to rubble. Yet amidst the desolation there was a palpable sense of hope, a belief that they were witnessing the fulfillment of prophecy, that God was restoring his people to their rightful place. The task that lay before the returning exiles was daunting. They were starting anew, rebuilding their lives and their community from the ground up. Their immediate priority was the construction of an altar on the site of the destroyed temple, a symbolic act of reclaiming their sacred space and re-establishing their covenant with God. With great ceremony and amidst much rejoicing, they offered sacrifices, giving thanks for their deliverance and seeking God's blessing on their endeavors. The rebuilding of the temple itself was a massive undertaking, one that would take years of back-breaking labor and require immense resources. The returnees, many of whom were skilled artisans and craftsmen, threw themselves into the task with fervor, their faith fueling their determination. They quarried stone, hewed timber, and fashioned metalwork, their every action imbued with a sense of sacred purpose. However, their efforts were not without opposition. The Samaritans, who had settled in the region during the exile, viewed the returning Jews with suspicion and hostility. They saw the rebuilding of the temple as a threat to their own religious practices and their claim to the land. They used a combination of intimidation, political maneuvering, and even sabotage to hinder the construction, exploiting the fact that the Persian Empire, while vast, was not always able to maintain strict control over its distant provinces. Despite these obstacles, the work on the temple continued, albeit slowly and with many interruptions. The Book of Ezra and the Book of Nehemiah, which recount the history of this period, are filled with accounts of the challenges faced by the returnees, internal disputes, external pressures, and even moments of doubt and despair. Yet, through it all, there is a consistent theme of God's faithfulness, his guiding hand ever present, ensuring that his purposes would be fulfilled. One such example is the story of the prophet Haggai. As the years passed and the temple remained unfinished, a sense of complacency and disillusionment had settled over some of the returnees. They had begun to focus on their own personal lives, neglecting the rebuilding of God's house. Haggai, sent by God to stir the people from their apathy, delivered a series of fiery sermons, reminding them of their priorities and the consequences of neglecting their covenant with God. Haggai's words had a profound impact, rekindling the people's zeal and spurring them to resume work on the temple with renewed vigor. He reminded them that their own prosperity and well-being were inextricably linked to their obedience to God and their commitment to rebuilding his temple. His message resonated with the people, reminding them that they were not merely rebuilding a physical structure, but restoring their relationship with God, the foundation of their identity and their hope for the future. Cyrus's decree had far-reaching consequences, not just for the Jewish people, but for the Persian Empire and the wider ancient world. His policy of religious tolerance, a stark contrast to the practices of previous empires, fostered a climate of stability and prosperity. By allowing conquered peoples to retain their customs and beliefs, Cyrus ensured their loyalty and cooperation, transforming potential enemies into willing subjects. This approach to governance, rooted in wisdom and pragmatism, laid the foundation for the Persian Empire's enduring success. It allowed Cyrus and his successors to maintain control over a vast and diverse empire, spanning 3 continents and encompassing a multitude of cultures, languages, and religions. This era of peace and prosperity, made possible by Cyrus' enlightened policies, facilitated the exchange of ideas, the flourishing of trade, and the development of new technologies. Moreover, Cyrus's legacy of tolerance extended beyond the borders of his empire. His reputation as a just and benevolent ruler spread throughout the ancient world, influencing the policies of later rulers and inspiring generations of philosophers and thinkers. His example demonstrated that true strength lay not in brute force or cultural assimilation, but in respecting the dignity and beliefs of all peoples. For the Jewish people, Cyrus's legacy is inextricably linked to their faith and their understanding of God's plan for humanity. He is remembered not just as a benevolent ruler, but as a divinely appointed figure, an instrument in God's hands to fulfill his purposes. The prophet Isaiah's remarkable prophecy, uttered over a century before Cyrus's rise to power, identified him by name as the one who would say of Jerusalem, "Let it be rebuilt," and of the temple, "Let its foundations be laid." Isaiah 44:28. This prophecy, fulfilled with astonishing accuracy, cemented Cyrus's place in Jewish history and religious tradition. He became a symbol of God's power and sovereignty, his ability to work through even pagan rulers to accomplish his will. Moreover, Cyrus's actions, particularly his role in the rebuilding of the temple, were seen as prefiguring the ultimate restoration of Israel and the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. In Jewish thought, the rebuilding of the temple under Cyrus's patronage was not just a return to the status quo, but a sign of a new covenant, a new era in God's relationship with his people. This restoration, while significant, was seen as a foreshadowing of a greater restoration to come, one that would be ushered in by the Messiah, the anointed king who would establish God's kingdom in its fullness. The legacy of Cyrus the Great is a vibrant tapestry woven into the fabric of civilization. From towering monuments to enduring principles, Cyrus's impact is undeniable. His name echoes through time, a testament to vision and compassion. Visit the ruins of Pasargadae and marvel at his vision. His tomb, a simple yet elegant structure, speaks volumes. Its inscription reads, "O man, whoever you are, I am Cyrus, king of Asia. Do not begrudge me this bit of earth that covers my bones." Cyrus's legacy is etched in countless inscriptions and texts. From Herodotus to biblical accounts, a consistent portrait emerges. His reputation as a liberator and unifier transcended cultural barriers. For the Jewish people, Cyrus's legacy holds particular significance. His decree allowed the return from Babylonian exile and the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, marking a pivotal moment in Jewish history. Cyrus's actions restored their homeland and reignited their faith. The return to Zion allowed the Jewish people to re-establish their religious practices and communities. The rebuilding of the temple symbolized their renewed covenant with God. The Second Temple period saw a flourishing of Jewish religious thought and culture. Cyrus's legacy is deeply embedded in Jewish tradition and celebrated in religious texts. His name is invoked with reverence and gratitude, a reminder of God's faithfulness. The story of Cyrus serves as a testament to the enduring power of faith and divine providence. Cyrus's legacy extends far beyond the borders of ancient Persia and the annals of Jewish history. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in world history. his accomplishments shaping the political, cultural, and religious landscape of the ancient Near East and beyond. His innovative approach to governance, characterized by religious tolerance and respect for diverse cultures, set a precedent that influenced rulers for centuries to come. His military conquests, while impressive, are only part of the story. What truly distinguishes Cyrus is his vision for a more just and equitable world order, one based on mutual respect, cooperation, and the rule of law. He understood that true strength lay not in brute force or cultural assimilation, but in fostering unity amidst diversity, allowing conquered peoples to retain their customs and beliefs while pledging allegiance to a common cause. This enlightened approach to empire building, radical for its time, earned Cyrus the admiration of contemporaries and the respect of future generations. Greek historians, such as Herodotus and Xenophon, praised his wisdom, his justice, and his humane treatment of conquered peoples. His reputation as a lawgiver, a liberator, and a champion of human rights transcended cultural boundaries, influencing philosophical and political thought in both the East and the West. Cyrus's decree authorizing the return of the Jewish exiles and the rebuilding of the Temple in Jerusalem can be seen as more than just an act of political expediency or even uncommon generosity. It was a pivotal moment in the unfolding of God's plan for humanity, a foreshadowing of a new covenant, a new era in the relationship between God and his people. The prophet Isaiah, writing over a century before Cyrus's rise to power, had foretold his coming, describing him as God's shepherd and his anointed, Isaiah 44:28, 45:1. These titles, typically reserved for kings of Israel, underscored the significance of Cyrus's role in God's plan. He was not merely a foreign ruler, but a divinely appointed instrument, chosen to fulfill a specific purpose, to liberate God's people from captivity and facilitate the restoration of their worship. The rebuilding of the temple, while significant in its own right, pointed to a greater restoration to come. It symbolized the re-establishment of God's presence among his people, the renewal of their covenant relationship, and the hope for a future when God's kingdom would be fully realized on earth. This theme of restoration and renewal, initiated by Cyrus's decree, resonated throughout the Hebrew Bible and into the New Testament, finding its ultimate fulfillment in the person of Jesus Christ. The legacy of Cyrus the Great continues to resonate in the 21st century, offering timeless lessons in leadership, diplomacy, and the pursuit of justice. His example demonstrates that true leadership is not about amassing power or imposing one's will, but about serving the common good, fostering unity amidst diversity, and upholding the dignity of all people. Cyrus's reign teaches us that lasting peace and prosperity are built on a foundation of justice, compassion, and mutual respect. His policy of religious tolerance, groundbreaking for its time, stands as a beacon of enlightenment in a world often torn apart by religious intolerance and cultural clashes. His willingness to learn from and embrace the cultures of those he conquered, rather than seeking to erase them, fostered a spirit of cooperation and laid the foundation for a thriving multicultural empire. In an increasingly interconnected and interdependent world, Cyrus's legacy reminds us of the importance of dialogue, understanding, and the pursuit of common ground. His story demonstrates that true strength lies not in military might or economic dominance, but in the power of ideas, the courage to embrace diversity, and the unwavering commitment to justice and human dignity. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, Cyrus's example can serve as a guiding light, reminding us that the pursuit of a more just and compassionate world is an endeavor worthy of our greatest efforts. The life of King Cyrus continues to captivate and inspire. He rose to become the architect of the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. His military exploits and vision secured his place in history. Cyrus's name resonated with power from Persia to Babylon. He was a conqueror who sought to rebuild, not destroy. His empire was a testament to unity and diversity. Cyrus's story is a testament to leadership and purpose. His reign stands as a reminder of true greatness. For the Jewish people, Cyrus holds a special place in their historical memory and religious tradition. He is remembered as a divinely appointed figure, a shepherd chosen by God to guide his people home from exile and rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. His decree allowed the Jewish people to return, re-establish their religious practices, and reclaim their identity. The prophet Isaiah had foretold his coming, describing him as God's anointed who would rebuild Jerusalem and lay the temple's foundations. This prophecy cemented Cyrus's place in Jewish thought as a key figure in God's plan. The legacy of Cyrus the Great extends far beyond the ancient world, offering timeless lessons in leadership, diplomacy, and the pursuit of justice. In a world often divided by conflict, his story reminds us of the power of unity, the importance of understanding, and the need for compassion. His reign, though centuries removed from our own, speaks to the enduring human desire for peace, for freedom, and for a world where differences are respected and celebrated. Cyrus's example challenges us to lead with wisdom and courage, to seek common ground amidst diversity, and to build bridges of understanding across cultural and religious divides. His story teaches us that true strength lies not in military might or economic dominance, but in the power of ideas, the courage to embrace diversity, and the unwavering commitment to justice and human dignity. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, facing challenges both old and new, the life and legacy of Cyrus the Great offer a beacon of hope and a timeless blueprint for building a more just and compassionate world. His story reminds us that the pursuit of peace, the defense of human rights, and the celebration of diversity are not merely ideals, but essential ingredients for a brighter future.